160 years since they brought the university boat race from Henley to this stretch of the River Thames, and since it has never been the same 2 years running, because the River Thames is never the same 2 days running. The main race is rowed about 90 minutes before the top of the tide, about 5 minutes from now, at which point the stream is generally at its quickest. But the reserves race went off a little earlier and has just finished in a victory for Goldie, that is the Cambridge reserves, by 5 lengths. They, like the Blue Boat, rowing off the Middlesex station, and they lead that series now by 26 races to 15. Some consolation for their president, Andrew Shannon, who didn't make the main boat. I should warn you that the result is historically by no means a reliable guide to the outcome of the main event. Of course, the test is the same, the puzzle of this ever-changing tideway, a puzzle which no one can ever say they've entirely solved. Tim Foster, Wayne Pommen, please try.
Well, as the crews line up, we're going to have Cambridge on the right-hand side and Oxford on the left-hand side as we look at it coming through Putney Bridge. The start is just the other side of the bridge. It can be bouncy off the start. A lot of boats around there. They sprint for about the first minute with Fulham Wall on the right, passing Craven Cottage, where Cambridge will get the advantage of the inside of the first bend.
Both crews will push up hard through the milepost, which is where the controversial clash was this year. Then the crews will turn left around the Surrey Bend. That'll be in Oxford's favour. And they'll push hard through Hammersmith Bridge, lungs and legs starting to burn.
Once we're past Hammersmith Bridge, we come up towards Chiswick 8 on the right-hand side. This is about halfway down the course, so they've been rowing for 8-9 minutes already, really feeling the pain. This is Oxford's advantage with their bend here as they sweep round what's known as the Surrey Bend, passing Chiswick 8 on the right. This Surrey Bend will definitely favour Oxford, and they will probably try and get a length and a quarter clear, and try and get out in front of Cambridge there.
The final bend of the course swings back round to the right. That's Cambridge's advantage on the Middlesex station through Barnes Bridge. There's 3 minutes to row. Both crews be sprinting just as hard as they can to get to the finish line first, just in front of Chiswick Bridge.
Well, thank you, chaps, and so to those with that journey ahead in the exchanging sponsored boat race. Oxford have their president in the bow, Robin Bourne-Taylor, in his 4th race before Sandhurst and the Household Cavalry. At 2, the hugely pumped-up Canadian Barney Williams, Olympic silver medalist and oar's breadth behind Britain. At 3, the man his mates call the Commander, Sub-Lieutenant Peter Reid, sponsored through Oxford by the Royal Navy. Joe von Maltzahn in the 4th seat, an old Etonian in a crew which includes 3 state-educated Brits. From Sarasota, Florida, Chris Lipsky, opera buff, Olympian. 2 more Americans. At 6, Michael Blomqvist, a committed Christian who marked Easter Day before boat race day. And Jason Flickinger, the biggest, the strongest man in either boat. And in the stroke seat, Andrew Triggs-Hodge, another who competed for Britain in Athens, some say the next really big thing, all steered that juggernaut by the cox whose haunted face was the image of last year, Asa Nethercott. Now in the bow for Cambridge, the maverick American Luke Walton, once an elite swimmer who changed sports and blossomed. No one's come further to row today than Dr. Tom Edwards, a practicing medic from Tasmania. At 3, Henry Adams, over a series of frustrating injuries. No one prepares more meticulously than him. Now the engine room, Stefan Buschbacher, the only previous winner in the Cambridge boat. The German, Sebastian Schulte, who, after the disappointment of a 4th in the Olympics, has refound the fun in rowing this year. And Matthias Kleintz, the oldest, the lightest man in the race, a qualified vet. The best of British at just 21, Tom James is the youngest in the race, a steely Welshman. At stroke, the final German, Bernd Heidecke, a veteran of the last 2 Olympics, some say the best oarsman on show. And keeping that lot on the straight and narrow, cox Peter Rudge, who knows every nuance of the river, kitted out as ever today in his lucky socks in the colours of Durham University. And there are the conditions today. It is relatively mild, visibility not as good as it has been for the majority of Tideway week, a little bit chillier. How do you read the river today, Tim Foster?
I think conditions are good. We're not going to get any sinkings here. There's not going to be any really bouncy water. I think the wind is very slight. It will be a slight headwind probably as they pass the milepost, but I don't think it's anything that any of the crews will be particularly worried about at this moment.
And there is the Oxford boat, piqued by the perceived injustices of last year. Their particular challenge, the harnessing of exceptional power. This is the 60th race since the Second World War. It's been won from the Surrey side on 37 of the previous 59. Cambridge lead the post-war tally by 30 to 29. They are probably the underdogs, but not by very much. Those of us who saw them chase down a German international crew here a fortnight back know, Wayne Pommen, that they do punch considerably above their weight.
They do. They are lighter than Oxford, but they row extremely well, and their power-to-weight ratio is also very good. So if they row well today, if they get a good clean start, they could challenge Oxford big time.
the 21st century boat race. 2001, a clash and a contentious restart. 2002, a thrillingly close finish, which they said couldn't be bettered. 2003, it was bettered by the greatest race of them all. 2004, Asa Nethercott knows to his cost. More clashes, more controversy. So what happens next? The Cox is so important. Some have said to me, Tim Foster, that the Cox is to his 8 as a scrum half is to a pack.
Yes, I mean, they've basically got to harness an awful lot of power. They've got 8 people in front of them who are going to be working to the absolute limit of their physical ability. It's up to the Cox not only to steer them in the right way, but also get them firing together.
The crews have come under the order of the umpire. Now, whilst the Coxes have their hands in the air, it means they are not quite ready to begin.
Okay,
Both hands remain.
Just relax. We're just going to driftwood. There's Oxford have got driftwood coming down the stroke side. We need to let it get well clear.
Clearly the message is coming from the umpire that there is some driftwood on the river just in front of the crews, which is going to cause us some sort of a hold-up. Now, it is so important to these guys not to be kept waiting for too long. Their warm-up is a meticulously timed exercise, Wayne. It leaves them sweating at the start. Inactivity is an enemy to these guys now.
That's right. These guys have prepared for 6 months to be absolutely ready at 3:05 today. Any delay can potentially throw them off a little bit. Every minute that they're sitting there not moving, they're cooling down a little bit. It takes a bit of psychological resolve to stay ready in that situation.
It is an awkward exercise at the best of times, getting absolutely level, Tim. We're used to delays off the start, but an extraneous factor like that is going to get into the heads as well as tensing the bodies of the athletes here.
It's just what you don't want. You're trying to focus in on exactly what you're going to do. You've got your walls from the tips of your oars and the bow and the stern of your boat. You want to keep everything inside that bubble. You've got a lot going on outside. You've got helicopters around, you've got thousands of people, and there to have something like a bit of driftwood in the water getting in your way is exactly what you don't need. When you're ready, you want to go. You want to get this over. It's a relief when the guy does say go.
Coxes have their arms in the air again, but I think you heard there from Asa Nethercott, the Oxford Cox again, that the driftwood is still apparent. That is still a potential hindrance.
BT, hold water. BT.
This is tense, this is gladiatorial, this is a staring out of 2 prize fighters, intent on pummeling each other, but being held up by a factor right out of their own control. It is a problem for Boris Rankov, who is imbued in the history of this race. He's seen most of what it has to offer over the years. He won it 6 times with Oxford, late 70s, early 80s. He was the umpire of the extraordinarily close race of 2 years ago.
Okay, crews, get ready, please.
And now he is ready, and now they are ready.
Body relax. BT, hold water. BT, hold water. BT, relax.
Preparing themselves for immense physiological trauma here.
Easy tanker. Time again, tanker.
Oxford, Surrey Station, having lost the toss, left of your picture.
Cambridge ready.
Yeah, check your slide length, sit up tall. Breathing. Alright guys, my hand is down. Cambridge hand is down. Yep. My hand is up. BT, hold on.
Still a hand is up. This is so unsettling.
BT, relax.
Neither crew wants to be the first one to put their hand down.
This is brinksmanship to a certain extent. But clearly the Cambridge boat, Tim Foster, isn't straight.
Yeah, they look to be heading off at a very strange angle there. Peter Rudge in the Cox's City of the Cambridge boat needs to get his boat straight and ready. It's difficult here because they're not just sitting still, they're actually effectively going backwards. You can see the pictures there of the water going underneath the boat. We're nearly ready.
He was on the point of getting them away, but Cambridge clearly weren't properly aligned. Perhaps they are now. Lined up level with the ancient, humbly inconspicuous University Stone on the Surrey shore, just downriver from Putney Pier.
Attention, go!
And down goes the red flag, and the Blues are away. Their journey 4¼ miles, but the first quarter mile, the first minute is critical. The dash for early dominance, the battle for position, the location of the stream, the calculation of the upcoming bend and the breeze. Tim Foster.
It was an awful start by the Cambridge there. Tom James, 7-man in Cambridge boat, just missed the water completely on the first stroke. After all that sitting around, all that waiting, he wasn't really ready for the start. It's very tricky, the first stroke, but yeah, he missed that one out completely, and Oxford have the early lead.
A clear early advantage to Oxford, and it is Cambridge who need to have their noses in front here. They chose the Middlesex station for a reason, Wayne Pommen, and it is not going as they would have planned off the Stoke boat.
That's right, they've already given up maybe a third of a length. They need to hold Oxford here, they can limit Oxford's lead, and soon they're going to have a slight bend in their favour coming round to the right, and they want to come out of that in a very good position.
Along the Fulham Ridge, past the boathouses and the various overflowing pubs on the Surrey side, with Bishop's Park on the Middlesex bank, and we can hear now from the two Coxes, and first of all Oxford's Asa Nethercott. And Pete Rudge of Cambridge. And we heard from Boris Rankov for the first time in the race there. Oxford have been warned. They are eager to get across and nullify the advantage of Cambridge's bend as we approach Craven Cottage.
Yeah, Craven Cottage is a very key marker. The very point of Craven Cottage, level with that, is where the first bend is at its maximum point. So Oxford trying to creep over and get out in front of Cambridge, upset their water, upset their rhythm, and kind of nullify the inside of the bend advantage that they do have.
So far, this is a repeat of last year. Oxford have shot out with a very fast start. Luckily, there hasn't been a serious clash. Now the question is, can Cambridge push back in? And they appear to be moving a little bit on Oxford now.
Well, position at this early stage absolutely vital, because now that they have reached the end of the Fulham Wall and they've reached Craven Cottage, the first of the bends is unwinding, a bend which favours Cambridge on the Middlesex side to the tune of something like a third of a length. And it is essential from their point of view that they are at least level by the time it has unwound.
You can see now that Cambridge are trying to find their rhythm. They've got the inside of this bend, they've got to make it to their advantage, and they are starting to creep back. After that poor start, it took them a while to find their rhythm. They didn't get into the strength, the long sweeping strokes. We can see in our picture now, Cambridge are starting to draw level.
Now down on the river for us is James Cracknell. I wonder what you made of the start, James.
Well, yeah, I saw Tom James miss the first stroke, which set them back, but right now I've just come past from the football ground, and Cambridge's rhythm's much more lively. They seem to get a little bit more out of their boat each stroke, and Oxford are now happy to really kick in.
And they are just about alongside each other now. This has been an excellent recovery from Cambridge, who had such a dreadful start. Comparable stroke rates, gents, they were 36 each when we last saw.
That's right, if they're both running the same stroke rate and one boat is going a bit faster, that means that crew is being that much more efficient, getting the boat to run out that bit farther each stroke, and it looks like right now Cambridge are succeeding in doing that, because they might even be showing a foot, 2 feet up on Oxford.
Boris Rankov is involved again and has warned.
He's been warning both crews at the moment. He's asking them both to separate, and now he's warning Cambridge to move over. Crews got very close there, and he's warned both Oxford and Cambridge to separate. It's exactly the point now where the big clash happened last year. It's a dangerous part of the river, and both Coxes have responded initially, but once again they're becoming very, very close together with those blade tips.
Yes, it was just a couple of seconds past the milepost a year ago that the blade of the Cambridge stroke Nate Kirk made contact with that of the Oxford bowman Chris Kennelly and knocked him clean out of his seat. That was last year's pivotal moment. This year's pivotal moment is still to come, because there is at least a yard and a half of water between the blades just now.
Great picture there. They're exactly level. You had the two bowmen there, exactly level with each other. We've had the first bend. That was Cambridge's advantage. They had probably the inside worth half a length, so Oxford have done well and used their fast start to stay level at this point. And from now on, probably the next 6 minutes, the bend will favour Oxford.
It is developing into a good one, even at this stage of the race. A long Crabtree reach with just more than a quarter of it gone, and even given the extraordinary level of fitness that these guys attain, they tell me that the body is already crying stop. 3 miles or so to row, and already it is mind over body. Accurate blade work, each stroke as efficient, as smooth, as long, as harmonious as the last. And Oxford have a small advantage, and the course favours them from this point away.
That's right, Oxford have actually put themselves in a very good position. Cambridge challenged them, they came right back up on them, but now Oxford are rowing with a very good rhythm, a better rhythm than I've seen them have in many of their training sessions, and actually the advantage is now swinging their way as the course turns round to the left.
The end of the straight here is signalled about 300 yards past the milepost by the imposing Harrods Depository. It's more than just a famous landmark, that it is a signal that the contest is reaching very literally its turning point. First gently, then very suddenly, very markedly, they are shifting westwards and then southwestwards through the Surrey Bend. It is a bend which offers about 3/4 of a length advantage to Oxford, whose president Robin Bourne-Taylor you see there, and it is about halfway to the crown of the bend that they will reach the Hammersmith Bridge.
Oxford pushed on very well there. Their number of strokes per minute went up from 34 to 35. It's traditionally a strong Cambridge part of the race. They like to push at that part of the river, but it's Oxford who went from level to take a half-length lead as we approach Hammersmith Bridge.
Now, traditionally, the line to row for here is the second lamppost from the left. That is where the stream is, and here we can establish the line of steering, the tactics, the precise bearing of the two crews, Wayne.
That's right, Oxford, you see, they're able to make a sharp turn left, and if anything, push Cambridge out, get away from Cambridge. And they've earned half a length through good rowing, and now the bend is going to start to give them an advantage as well.
Under the bridge, roared on from the Middlesex bank by the massive overspill from those famous Hammersmith Riverside pubs, from the Blue Anchor, the Rutland, the Dove. And Oxford have clear advantage here, and Cambridge have it to do. It is their job now to hang on around this massive Surrey Bend. It is something they achieved in your year, Tim, to great historical note, but they are really labouring now.
It is really tough. I mean, you've had this fantastic effort off the start, you've found a rhythm, and even despite the fact that your body is screaming for you to stop already, you've got to push maybe that little bit harder. It's a really key point of the race now, because if Oxford do start to slip away and get over a length and a quarter ahead of Cambridge before we get to the final bend, Oxford can take Cambridge's water, so it's not much point in them having the Middlesex station if the final bend doesn't actually come into play.
There's a look at Cambridge there. They're just not rowing as well as they have done in practice. They're not rowing as well as they did 2 weeks ago against the German crew. It's looking a bit heavy, a bit laboured. On the other hand, here Oxford, we see with a very good rhythm. They're feeling more confident by each stroke. Cambridge has to do something drastic to get back in this.
Right at the apex of the bend on the Surrey side, the playing fields of St Paul's School going past them now, a school which has produced so many fine rowers itself. There is Andrew Triggs-Hodge, who is going to become big in the world of British rowing. Jason Flickinger, the most powerful man in the race, right behind him, and Cambridge falling further behind. Let's hear again from Asa Nethercott steering the Oxford boat.
Finish clean! Down! Yes, boys! 6 months! Every urge! Every session! Together!
6 months is what they invest in this. So much time, so much energy, so much desire. And it is 6 months of investment which may be about to pay dividends for Oxford. The work now is for Cambridge to do.
Cambridge really got to work hard now. Okay, you've still got maybe another 7-8 minutes to go of this race, but this next 3 minutes is going to be crucial for Cambridge. You can see on our pictures, it's exactly 1 length. You can't make it be a length and a quarter. Cambridge pushing their stroke rate up to 36 strokes a minute in order to try and bridge that gap. That length and a quarter is a real key distance, because if Oxford get that far ahead, then they can take Cambridge's water. So there's merely a quarter of a length difference that Cambridge need to push back up, and Oxford will try and push away themselves.
There is Bert Heidecker, that great technician who does manage to blend strength with technique so very admirably, and has been such a pretty picture to watch in the build-up to the race. Peter Rudge has to keep him motivated, keep him sweet.
Our conditions!
Oxford
here, Cambridge!
Oxford are looking very good here, but if Peter Rudge can keep Cambridge's nose in there, if he can keep them to the right of Oxford for a bit longer, eventually the bend will come back round to their advantage, and this race is not over yet.
And you see that there is a little bit of water on the lenses of our cameras now. It's been dry all morning, but the rain has started to fall for the second half of the 151st University Boat Race. Stroke rates again more or less comparable, but Oxford are getting more per stroke.
Oxford are doing fantastically well. We talked about the Cambridge rhythm, and we actually talked about the Cambridge strokeman Bernd Heidegger, but in my mind, Andy Hodge in stroke seat in the Oxford boat is doing a fantastic job. He's got some big, strong, powerful people behind him, and he's setting up a very simple, very consistent rhythm for them to follow. He's doing very well, and we've had Cambridge pushing hard, maybe around Chiswick Steps, and now Oxford are just starting to inch away again. It's a real key point of the race.
Cambridge need to maintain an overlap if they can, because the final bend, if they're in a position to profit from it, is a bend which will favour them, and they are going to need it.
Absolutely. I think Oxford have put in a major move there. They pumped their rate up as high as 37. Cambridge, meanwhile, were on 34, 35, and now we're seeing Oxford with possibly quarter length, even half a length clear water. And now they've steered in front of Cambridge. They can go wherever they like now.
A thought on the mindset of the crew which is behind Tim, because obviously from Oxford's point of view they can see the enemy now. However backbreaking every stroke is, it feels a little better because they have Cambridge in their sights.
It definitely does. I mean, when you're up in rowing and you can see your opposition behind you, despite the pain you're in, you're going to feel fantastic. They know they've got maybe 5 minutes to go here. They know they can see the Cambridge crew. Cambridge crew can still feel the Oxford guys in front of them. They know it's not lost yet. They've got to push on, but as we can see from our pictures there, Oxford have steered in front of Cambridge. They've got the advantage and can maybe take the shorter line around the inside of the bend.
Well, James Cracknell is down on the river. James, is there any way back from Cambridge from where you're sitting?
Yep, the Cambridge here, they're actually holding very well considering they're rowing in the dirty water of Oxford, but it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to make any inroads as they come back into the Barnes Bend.
12 minutes of the race road, 5 or 6 still to go, into Corney Reach, past Duke's Meadows. Fantastic support from the banks for either side, and a vast flotilla following, but it is a flotilla being led almost unassailably now, you would feel, by Oxford, whose Cox Asa Nethercott now has a view of Barnes Bridge, and what a likeable view that will be. After 6 or 7 months of training, all those freezing mornings, all those stringent sessions at Wallingford for Oxford and Ely for Cambridge, and now they are passing the famous bandstand, which means that they have 4 minutes of that process still to go. How much of a judgment on the race can you make if you are behind, chaps? Because clearly you don't have a view of the crew in front. Can you feel them? Can you sense that there's a way back?
You're relying on your cops a little bit to kind of keep you informed as to what's going on ahead, but you can still feel them. The gap there isn't massive, so the Cambridge guys can still feel the Oxford boys in front, and they have got to go now. They've got to still believe in their minds that they do have the inside of the next bend if they can make up that gap between them and the Oxford boat. It's not looking promising. Oxford are still pushing on fantastically hard, still in that good strong rhythm, using their strength, but Cambridge have got to still believe.
We go now. On 2, ready.
Pete Rudge with the convincing to do. Asa Nethercott, who had such a hideous race a year ago, who had such a joyous moment crossing the finishing line 2 years ago. The lines have to be right now. The rules of the race say that they have to shoot the central span of Barnes Bridge, and once they are through that, there are 3 minutes still to row.
Oxford have rowed very well here. When it counted around the Surrey Bend, they had an excellent rhythm, a better rhythm than Cambridge. Everyone thought Cambridge had the better rhythm, but Oxford rowed very well. Now they can smell the finish line. They know they've only got to keep this up for 2.5 more minutes, and they've won the boat race.
Only 6 times in the history of the race has the crew trailing at Barnes Bridge come back to win it, and it ain't going to happen now because Oxford are pulling away. It has been a contest for 2/3 of it. It has been one of the most talked about boat races of recent generations because we had 2 of the classiest crews of recent generations, but Oxford's weight and Oxford's power, and ultimately, in fairness to them, Oxford's technique has won the day. This has not turned out to be Beauty and the Beast. It has turned out to be Beauty in the same boat as the Beast.
I think that's very true. I mean, we all talked about the Oxford power. They're big, they're strong, and we knew that would be a key factor. But what Oxford have done today is they've really rode to their strengths. They've kept it simple, they've kept it long, and actually it's them that have had that efficiency of stroke. Cambridge got rattled, didn't get the best start, didn't find the best rhythm that was always going to be their big opportunity. And what we're seeing now is, yes, that the big, strong crew can row as efficiently and can go faster.
I think Oxford have really attacked this race as well. The statistics we saw a second ago show that Oxford continued to overrate Cambridge. Now Cambridge has at least matched their rate, but Oxford, when it counted, were actually rating higher than Cambridge, which you might not even expect with a crew that big.
And Chiswick Bridge is in sight. Chiswick Bridge, beneath which they will shortly seek sanctuary. I think we just saw a small smile playing on the lips of Andy Triggs-Hodge there, the stroke for Oxford. He knows the job is very nearly done. This is about pain now. This is about endurance. This is about fortitude. Oxford were going to win in a boxing ring, but they would win in a parade ring as well. They have been stronger, they have been prettier, and they are going to be the winners. And Cambridge, for all their much vaunted superior supposed technique, are following the dark blues home.
It's a fantastic feeling when you're out in front like that. Oxford know they can see the finish. They know they're nearly there. They can see their opposition behind them. They're going to win it.
Participation in the university boat race is a privilege. Defeat is an ineradicable scar. Victory, a badge of honour for life. And victory in 2005 goes to Oxford University. It is Oxford's for the third year in form. They reduce Cambridge's overall lead in the series to just 6, and they level up the post-war tally at 30 wins apiece. And there is an indication of what they have gone through to get there. Particular pleasure for those who lost so contentiously a year ago. For the Coxator Nethercott, who has been from heaven to hell in this race, and who today made the return journey. And for Peter Reid of the Royal Navy, with whom he shares his digs and with whom he shared last year's agony. Also, at the back of your picture there, for their most distinguished president, Robin Bourne-Taylor, who has now won 3 of his 4 races. And all a particular sadness for Cambridge's most likeable and dedicated coach, Robin Williams, who ends his association with CUBC in defeat. And for those Matthias Kleintz and Tom James, who missed last year and return now for a second Blue Boat defeat. For Stefan Buschbacher, who won last year, a first horrid taste of how it feels to lose this race. For the rest of them, it is all they have ever known, and they are not liking it. But for Oxford, the taste of revenge. The presentation of the first Exchanging Boat Race trophy for their victory in the 151st boat race will be to those massive boys with massive hearts, and how they have bonded, and how that picture tells its story. How much it comes to mean. It matters almost disproportionately to these fellas. And having had the privilege to get to know both sets of lads, and they are 2 very likeable sets of lads, you can't help but feel immense human pleasure for the winners. And those are the winners. Joe von Maltzahn and Peter Reid will go back to the Navy and tell his mates, I won, and this is a race that is only about winning and losing. There is no silver medal. Gold, though, Gabby, goes to the dark blues of Oxford.
Indeed, Peter, it was Oxford's day. Power prevailed. Ace and Nethercott's men making amends for last year's disappointment on the river. Join us after the break for reaction from the crews and the all-important trophy presentation.